We're happy to have you on the podcast today, Jennifer. Is this your first podcast?
This is my very first podcast. I'm honored to be here.
Well, we're really grateful to have you. You know, look, this is James and Jennifer. James is an old podcast veteran. If you guys don't know James Ward, he is one of the lead instructors at the Proving Grounds. He's been with us since the first Proving Grounds mission. He's literally has been with us from the first conversation we even had about doing a mission like that. He's been on the podcast before. Works with an organization or for or helps run or whatever you want to say called Heart for Lebanon. If you guys want to learn more about James's mission, go find his episode. I'd like to actually go back and listen to that episode again. It's been a long time. Guys, what's that been? A year, probably?
Right about a year, I think.
That's back before you knew how to host podcast.
Yeah.
That's one of the early ones.
Was that live? Did we do that live?
We did that live in the living room over here.
Oh, did we
you
really?
And me and Brooke, yeah.
I'll be dang. Jennifer, what have you been up to?
Well, trying to keep up with this guy. But we have 2 kids that keep us quite busy, a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, that your sweet wife has currently for us to do this podcast. And I work for a nonprofit as well, Lighthouse, that works with families living through childhood cancer. So we keep ourselves pretty busy.
Man, I heard you had a meeting today.
I did.
Everything go all right?
Everything is great. I got an amazing team. They really do all the work. They're incredible.
That's awesome.
Thank you guys for adjusting your schedule so I could be here.
No problem. I didn't have any meetings today. It's been a really good day for me. I didn't, did I, Blake?
No, I don't think you did anything today.
I went to the gym and I ran.
How fast did you do that workout
That
this
counts
morning?
as work.
That's a good day.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like, what I do every day. How fast to do that workout? Maybe 12 minutes, maybe? Somewhere around there. Rob beat me.
Did he?
Big Rob beat me. He was tickled to death too, son.
How did he do that?
He had 75 on the hang clean and jerk.
Oh, that wasn't nothing for him.
No, he was throwing it around like a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's where he got me at.
Did he do double unders?
No, he did single unders, and I can't do double unders. Can y'all?
I can do a couple, but I can't do a lot of them.
I'm pretty sure that I don't know what that is, so I'm going to say no.
Do you not CrossFit, Jennifer?
No.
What do you do to stay so dang fit?
Well,
because you are really fit.
During the pandemic, James made us a
the
basement
scamdemic.
gym.
Hold on, there was a pandemic?
A scamdemic, whatever you want to call it. This past year, he made us a basement gym, and he just writes on the board what I'm supposed to do, and I just do that.
I go down about twice a week, and I change it up. I write a workout out on the board, and she goes down and executes on that thing like a boss.
Well, James busted out his darn Thor hammer in the parking lot of Moe's Barbecue and was busting off with some Thor hammers.
Dude.
Yes, those things are serious.
A lot of stuff was going down at the Moe's, man. We had the Thor. If y'all didn't see the Team PT last week, you should. Well, it's not even on Instagram anymore. I just posted on my story. James was with us, of course, and you did well. You're a strong mountain bike rider.
I love doing it, man. I love mountain biking's like that's my core thing is mountain biking. I've been doing that since high school.
Yeah, you're strong on the bike, man. Not so much running, but you're strong on the bike. What's your strength in fitness, Jennifer?
Well, I mean, I've really gotten into trail running this past year, and I love it. That's probably my passion. I don't think I'm any good at it, but I just keep getting curious about how long I can go. So
you did your first ultra not long ago, right?
I did. I think I've done 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
50 miles or?
Yes. 50
okay.
miles.
How you like it?
Oh, I loved it. Except it was in December and I stepped on a snake. Wasn't expecting that. I'm not a big fan of snakes. So that was the only low point of the experience.
That's weird. Move that mic down just a little, Jennifer, where I can capture the fullness of your beautiful voice.
Is that good?
Oh, that's great. Yep.
Okay.
So ultra running, you've done 250-milers, right?
I did one 32-mile and one 50-mile.
Yeah, 50K and a 50-miler.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. 50K and a 50-miler. And the only low point was you stepped on a snake? You need to run faster.
I wish that was my only low point on my first 50-miler.
She killed it, man. I ran that one with her, and man, she just killed it.
Where are you going to go with your ultra running? I mean, what are your goals for that? Because you said you're curious about how far you can go. So
Yeah, I'm real slow, so I could stand to get faster, but I want to try to do 100 by the end of the year. Because I could have kept going after 50. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was happy to finish, but I'd like to see how much more we can do.
what are you liking about it?
Probably the number one thing that I love is just the time out on the trail, the silence. I feel like I listen to God more doing that than any other time because I have to keep busy all the time, and I'm not going to just sit somewhere and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like out on the trail, I don't ever listen to anything. I'm just out in nature, and I can hear and think about things on a different level when I'm out there. So I love that. I love what it teaches you. I mean, James and I talk about this all the time. I feel like it's transferable to so many aspects of life, of just growth in every area. The patience it takes, that's been a big learning for me because I wouldn't say I'm an overly patient person. So those are a couple of things I love about it.
No, that's perfect. A lot of the same things that I love about it for sure. You guys have a really I mean, whatever you want to call it, awesome, unique, whatever marriage, because y'all do all kinds of stuff together. And I don't know, do y'all ever fuss?
We do. We have our moments, but
Sure.
we have.
You really seem to jive really well together. And James is always talking about his bride, and Jennifer's always smiling when you guys are together doing fun stuff. You race together. I'm going to tell you, if I tried to run an ultra with Brooke, no. She would probably end up killing me by the end of it, unless I just ran and didn't say anything to her. So y'all have a great marriage. What's the secret there?
Oh man. Well, it's work. I mean, we prioritize. We're actually just talking about this last night with another couple. We prioritize our marriage relationship above just about everything else in our lives. Probably our relationship with Jesus is number one. Close thereafter is being intentional with our relationship with each other. So we do adventures together. We do ministry together. We talk through things. The old saying, you don't go to bed angry with each other. Run into the mess if somebody's upset or one of us are upset about the other one. We're pretty quick to dive into that and have those conversations and sort things out and try to do it quickly. But we also just love being together. We love doing stuff together. She's my best friend, and we have a great time together.
Yeah, we certainly have our challenges like every marriage, and we're both really passionate people, strong opinions, and we can certainly clash with that. And one of the things we've had to learn in our marriage is how to fight well, because we're both fighters, and that can escalate when you're both fighters. And learning to care about the other person more than winning, I think, has been a challenge for us because we both like to win, and that just creates damage in the relationship. So I think that's the work. That's an example of the work that James is talking about, but I wouldn't want to work on it with anybody else.
Mm-hmm. What do you say you're both passionate people. What are you most passionate about in life, Jennifer?
Oh, for me, number one is my relationship with Jesus. That is center for me. That gives purpose to everything in my life. It gives greater purpose, eternal purpose the lens in which I look at everything, family, my relationship with my husband, ministry, relationship with other people, that gives me the eternal perspective. So that's what I'm most passionate about. Second thing would be this man right here. I just adore that man. Every minute I get to be married to him, I think is a gift. I mean, sometimes he certainly ticks me off, don't get me wrong, but
Thank you for adding that in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can be a real jackwagon, and she puts up with me well.
But I think for us, I think it was Andy Stanley say one time that marriage is about running to the back of the line, just getting there as fast as you can, putting the other one first. He said it a lot more articulately, but I think we try to do that. If you're constantly thinking about the other person and putting yourself behind that, and you're both doing that, then I think God does something pretty special with it.
Man, believe that. I need to take that advice big time.
Yeah, easier said than done.
100%. But it's evident. The fruits of it is evident in y'all's relationship. I mean, I look up to you guys as individuals, but also especially as a married couple. You really shine. You guys really shine as a couple. Well, as one, you guys are both children of Jesus, and you are one in marriage. You really shine in that aspect of your life. Dude, I forgot to tell y'all what this podcast, of course, we could sit here and talk to James and Jennifer. By the way, you have the same names as my mother and father. We could sit and talk to you guys for 2 hours just about marriage and life and testimony and all this. I really want, here in just a second, I really want to hear the story of James ran the Mid-State Mile alongside me and a bunch of other brothers and sisters. What's it been? A couple of weeks ago now. And James lost his father during the race. And I wasn't able to gain any perspective on what was happening because I was being selfish.
You were racing.
Yeah.
You were in the race.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I had a moment of conflict in my own mind when it was happening of like, wow, this is terrible. I love James. How do I handle this? Come alongside him as a friend, but also stay locked on to this objective. It's like, you know, I definitely had a moment of conflict with that. And I don't know how, I don't know if I did the right thing or the wrong thing or what, but regardless of that, this podcast isn't about me. I just had I know what happened. I have no perspective on how it happened, the timeline, how it affected you guys. And that's really the story that I wanted to capture here. And also, this podcast is brought to you by Exo Skin. I got to give Exo Skin a shout out in this podcast. James, you're Exo Skin ambassador now, right?
Yes, I am. Yep.
So what's your experience been with Exo Skin?
Man, I love it. I have in the past struggled with chafing that I have grown to absolutely hate.
Yeah.
And has taken me out of things that I have wanted to do because it's a joy killer. And man, you turned me on to using Exo Skin a couple years ago and been using it. And man, I love it. I love the socks. I love the shorts. Got some of the liners recently and love those. I just think it's the best product out there for me for running, biking. I use it for workouts, just about anything. It just works. Yes. And Jennifer loves it because when I come in after a long ride or a long workout and I put my shorts up on the shower to let them dry out, they don't stink so bad.
Isn't that amazing, man?
It's unbelievable.
It really is. It's a tremendous difference. So Exo Skin's woven copper fiber into this fabric, special proprietary fabric that they have patents on it. And so it doesn't retain odor-causing bacteria. And, yeah, it doesn't stink. What was it, Croy? Oh, yeah, Croy wanted us to tell you guys they're coming out pretty soon with some different colors.
They're out now.
They're out now. Some different colors in the toe socks.
Yep.
And I'm pretty jealous about that. I'm gonna have to go in and buy me some. I got 2 colors. I got the old green ones, and I got some red ones.
Since when did you start caring about colors?
I mean, the toe socks is like the only thing I wear with color.
Yeah, and they show on your
Yeah,
sandals.
everything else I wear is either black or brown usually, or blue. But yeah, they're coming out with some new color schemes for the toe socks. If you guys need some new Exo Skin toe socks, if you do need some new ones, if you already have some and you do need some new ones, they're probably old because these socks last a really, really long time. I'd say they've got, you can get triple the life out of a Exo Skin sock as you can get out of the most high-end other running socks on the market, like Swiftwick or Darn Tough or Smart Wool or any of those. I'd say Exo Skin is about 3 times the life at a minimum. I've got some Exo Skin socks that are literally 2+ years old, and I run a lot. All right? So go check them out, exoskin.us. That's their website. I'll attach it in the show notes of this episode. I'll also attach a pro code that you guys can use, especially for you 3 of 7 podcast listeners, to get
It's now 15.
Now 15% off, which is a pretty dang good discount. 15% off your Exo Skin order. Go give them a follow on Instagram. I'll attach their handle in the show notes of this episode. Exo Skin, you've sponsored us since day 1 of the 3 of 7 podcast, and you were the first company to come alongside me as an athlete, and I am forever grateful for that and for the awesome products that you put out to keep us comfortable out on the trail. All right.
I'm pretty excited about those new colors. I'm going to have to go order some of those after this show.
Me too. I am. I'm pumped about that. And thank you for the testimonial, James.
Yeah, happy to do it.
All right. This race, the Mid-State Mile. First of all, why'd you sign up for this, James? By the way, James's name is James. We call him James.
I signed up for it because I really wanted to see what I had in the tank, what I could do. I wanted to push myself to the limit of my abilities, capabilities. And I was familiar with the race from you doing it last year. It suits me well because I'm not a real fast runner, but I'm usually pretty durable.
You thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail
Thru-hiked the
north
Appalachian
to south.
Trail. Yep, did it southbound. I love climbing. I mean, I love rock climbing, but in terms of running or hiking, I love climbing. I love altitude. I love taking elevation, and so it was a good. It seemed like a good fit for me, and something that I'd do well at, and that I wanted to go out and give it a good effort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, when we met to do some prep work for the proving grounds that day, I remember you saying, I kind of, what was your original goal?
So originally I was thinking, in the conversation we had, because I remember it, was I was thinking, well, I know I want to do at least 24 hours, but I don't want to set that as a goal because I don't want to get to 24 hours, have more in the tank, and think and have an out, right?
Your brain would cut you off.
Right. Brain just says, okay, you're done now. And so, and you looked at me and you were like, son, you need to change your perspective on that. You need to run this race to win it.
Yeah.
And man, I don't think those words got out of your mouth before my mindset was changed. And Jennifer can attest to this. I came back from that day and it's like, all right, it's on now. So
Oh yeah. You cranked
my
it into
training,
overdrive.
like everything changed with that mindset shift of, no, I'm running it. I'm running it to win it. I'm running it to be there against Chad at the end.
And you were very dedicated in your training, I think, leading up to the race. Those last few months there, I know we followed James on Instagram, and I saw you post, and you were getting after it, man.
I was.
You're putting the work in.
I was putting the work in.
Yeah. So I saw it. I saw that distinct mindset shift in that moment, and I think that there are a lot of people out there that are just getting into ultra running that don't give themselves enough credibility as a true contender to win these certain types of races that play to their strengths. And that was one of the big things. One of the big things for me when I first started ultra running, I never thought that really that I could ever win a race. And then one of my buddies, he told me, I was placing 8th place, 6th place, 10th place. And he was like, hey man, you could win these things. You could do pretty good. And sometimes you got, we should all take a lesson from that. Sometimes you should tell don't tell somebody that really can't do it. But if you've got a buddy or a brother or a sister, and they have the capabilities to really do well if that's something they enjoy and they don't see it in themselves, point it out. And I was serious when I told you that. I was like, no, man, you can win this. And you latched right onto it, man. And, all right. So mindset shift. All right. You're coming. It's the day before race day. What's going on?
So really it kind of starts the week leading up to the race. I was down in Florida with the family. We were doing a retreat for the ministry that Jennifer works with. And I was down there. I was working remote, but I was putting in some miles down there. It was the week before the race. So I wasn't doing anything long, but just trying to it was hot. So trying to get some heat training in and just kind of a nice, easy runs down there. And was planning on coming back that Friday and driving up to the race and, getting ready and racing Saturday. Well, Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from my mom. My dad had been in the hospital, but he had been dealing with some stuff that wasn't life-threatening. It wasn't supposed to be life-threatening. And I'd known he was in the hospital. And she called and said, hey, your dad's going to call you in a few minutes. You need to take the call. And I knew okay, something's up here. I don't get these kind of calls from my mom. And sure enough, Dad called and he says, hey, they're about to take me into a surgery. It's really high risk. There's a good chance I'm not coming out of it. And he wanted to have that conversation, that goodbye conversation in that moment of, listen, if I don't come out of it, I want you to take care of your mother. I want you to tell your sister this, and he just and I had the opportunity to tell him, Dad, I love you. You've been a great father. And we had that moment, right, where we had to have that conversation. Hung up the phone and went straight to get on a plane to fly home. And he got into the surgery room, and the anesthesiologist came in and said refused to put him under because the risk was so great.
Wow. What was he dealing with, James? Health-wise?
He was dealing with a number of different issues, but the main one at that point was he had some internal bleeding that they just couldn't get to stop. And he had a heart issue as well, and because of the heart issue, it made going in and cauterizing the veins that were bleeding very, very risky. And that's what they needed to do. And so they were just hoping that the bleeding would stop, and they were giving him transfusions every once in a while, trying different things to try to stop that bleeding, and it just wouldn't stop. He had some prostate cancer a few years back and had some radiation treatment done, and so that was complicating it as well. There was some scarring from the radiation. So that's what he was dealing with. Mm-hmm. And got on a plane. He ended up not going into surgery, so I spent Wednesday and Thursday with him in the hospital, just spending time with him, trying to get with doctors. This COVID junk creates so much problems for families who have someone in the hospital. We could have one visitor a day go visit my father. And so, which meant if I spend the day up there with him, my mom can't go sit with him and be with him, or my sister can't go sit with him and be with him. But we were to the point where it was getting serious enough where there were decisions that needed to be made. We needed to make sure the doctors were giving him the attention he needed, and there was a treatment plan. And so spent Wednesday and Thursday with him in the hospital, try to help facilitate some of that, which was just a mess, right? Because you got like 4 hours of visiting hours. They'll even let you be there. Of course, the doctors aren't making their rounds during that 4 hours. And so trying to get answers and piece together stuff was just a hassle. But over the course of 2 days, we were able to make some progress and felt like we had a good plan. Had the opportunity to just sit with him, spend a lot of time with him, telling stories, interacting with him, which was great. And come Friday morning, had a decision to make, right? Are we going to go do this thing, go run this race, or are we going to stay back and hang with Dad and the family? And I was real conflicted about that, to be honest with you, about what is the right thing to do here. But made the decision largely because only one person could go visit him, at a day.
Yeah.
Just be sitting at home while my mom or my sister was visiting him. I had the last 2 days with him. And so talked about it with Jennifer. We prayed about it. And we decided, all right, we're going to go. Dad wanted me to run it. My dad supported all of my wild adventures. Anything I'd ever done, from the Appalachian Trail. He and Mom drove me up, dropped me off in Maine to hike home. They funded it for me. I was fresh out of high school. I didn't have any money. And he believed in me, everything I ever tried to do. He just believed I could accomplish it. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted me to run it. Mom wanted me to do it. My sister did. And so we headed up and got up to Franklin, got to the course Friday afternoon, got everything set up. Yeah. And that's when I ran into you and Blake. You guys were rolling in.
Well, I want to talk to you about those 2 days you got to spend with your dad. Did he know or did he imply that he knew that time was really short?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you asked that question because my dad had a real spiritual transformational experience about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
Where he grew up in a Christian home, came from a Christian background, but during his military years and years coming out of the military, he was a medic in the Army. He had some wild times, son. He was into it all.
What years was he in?
Oh man, I honestly don't know. It would have been.
Was it wartime?
It was Vietnam era.
Okay.
Yep. He ended up his unit went to Vietnam. He ended up last minute through some just crazy circumstances. Someone stole his television out of his barracks, and he had to go to the hearing for the person who stole it. And his unit was shipping out, and he missed going with them. And afterwards he got reassigned to Korea. So he ended up spending a couple tours in Korea.
Okay.
But he was, God just really transformed his life. He finally came to grips with the reality of God's forgiveness and that grace that comes through a relationship with Jesus Christ, and that those things that he did all those years ago, that was the old self.
And you said it was only about 1.5 years ago.
It was just 1.5 years ago. Yeah.
What prompted that?
Him feeling like he was running out of time. He called me one day when he's had health issues the last 2 years that were pretty serious. But he called me out of the blue one day. It was during all the lockdown stuff. We hadn't seen him in a while because he was older and high risk and all, and we didn't know. Nobody knew what was going on back then, right?
Yeah.
He called me one day and he said, "Hey, James, I'm not doing well. I don't think I have much longer. I want to see the grandkids and I want to talk to you about Jesus." And I'm like, "Well, we can have that conversation right now, Dad, and then we'll load up the kids in the car when we're done and we'll come see you." And so we just had this incredible conversation about grace and about forgiveness and God's ability to separate the past from the future in a way that is, like Scripture says, as far as from the east as the west. And I feel like he finally at that point believed that and truly put his faith in Jesus. And man, I've never seen someone so transformed in such a short amount of time. My dad was always a good guy, always a great father, but man, he didn't want to mess with him. He was short-fused. He was ornery. He'd get frustrated at little things. He was always looking for a fight, if not sometimes physically, but if not physically, looking for an argument with someone, looking to look. He was just combative. And from the day that I had that conversation with him to the day he passed away, I never saw him lose his temper. And those last year and a half were the hardest of his life in many ways because of his medical issues and his struggles. Never saw him lose his temper. The way he treated and loved my mom was better than I'd ever seen him treat and love my mom before. And again, he wasn't a bad guy before, but he just had his issues like we all do. And so those last couple days with him in the hospital, at one point he looked over at me and he had just started coughing out of nowhere, and he'd coughed up some blood. And like I said, he was a medic in the Army. He was putting things together, and he just looked at me. He said, "James, this isn't good." He said, "There's too many issues compounding here at one time." He said, I don't think I'm gonna make it." And I'm like, "Dad, come on, you're gonna be fine. Best doctors, they got a plan. You're gonna be just fine." And he just looked at me and said, "Well, I hope so, but if not, I'm ready. I'm ready to go."
Mm-hmm.
And so he knew. I think he knew it was coming before the rest of us did, and I think he came to grips with it before the rest of us did.
Well, I'll tell you, it takes a lot of courage to make that statement, and it takes a strong faith to make that statement when that, I guess that veil between life and eternal life starts to get real thin.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing that he turned to you and said that.
Yeah. And Chad and Blake, the way that he was in a lot of pain. I mean, I'd never seen, I've seen people in pain. I've seen people suffer. Never seen anybody in pain like that. I mean, there were times when, he would be on morphine and he would still be gripping the side of that hospital bed, just groaning in pain. It just, and yet nurse would come in and she'd want to do something to him or prod him or, check something or whatever. And he'd moan and you could tell he was just in pain, but that nurse would finish and he'd wave for her to come over by the bed and he'd say, "Hey, I hope you know I'm not upset with you. I'm so grateful for the way that you take care of me. You're a blessing to me. And I know God's doing something. He's got a purpose for this." And it's just like in the midst of all that, he still had the mindset and the mission focus, if you will, to be caring for the people that were taking care of him. And that's not the same man. He wouldn't have responded that way 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just this evidence of that transformation. And so it did. I mean, I saw so much courage in him as he faced his final days and his final hours. And so much confidence that, it's like I've heard you say a number of times, right? When you become totally convinced that you can't die. I mean, you could stop breathing.
Yeah.
Your heart could stop beating, but that's just a time of transition.
Yeah.
You're just moving from one home to the next. When you become solely convinced of that and you down in your heart, it changes everything.
Yeah.
And that's what we witnessed in my dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, moving is uncomfortable. Who likes to move? I hate moving. And no matter when you have the realization that you that you have access to eternal life, it doesn't mean that death is not going to be uncomfortable.
Right. Yep.
Death is an ugly thing. I mean, when you see death and you comprehend how the ugliness of it and the how uncomfortable it is for everyone, it makes you have a new appreciation for the fact that Jesus Christ conquered death, and it makes you have a new understanding of eternal life in a place where death does not exist. Yep. So when you depart your tent, it's like moving. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. Right.
Well,
This is
we've
all
all-
you know is living in this body.
We've all backpacked, and we certainly know that Chad doesn't like to depart his tent in the morning. So as uncomfortable as that is for him, you can imagine how much more death is.
That's right. That's right. So that's awesome, man. I appreciate you talking us through that.
Yeah.
That portion. And so you decide, and I get it. That I imagine that was a hard decision, but like you said, you could only have one person at the hospital at a time. So it's like, and he was fully supportive of you and Jennifer going up to do the event, and you guys headed up to Tennessee. We saw you guys pretty soon after. Well, you guys were there when we got there. I think we saw you, chatted, and I don't even know if I think maybe I knew that, kind of a little bit about what was going on with your dad, but I didn't know the seriousness of it. And then it was shortly after that. I think we were sitting in the RV, and you guys knocked on the RV, and y'all were having to get out of there so what was going on there?
So, Jennifer, you want to chat? Because you got the phone call, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. We had just been talking to his mom, checking in, everything. It'd been a little bit of a rough day, but his dad was in the hospital and doing well and resting, and felt really good about where his mom was, where his dad was. And then she literally got a phone call from the hospital when I was on the phone with her. So she hung up, grabbed that, and then she called me right back. And I could tell immediately the sound of her voice, something wasn't right. And through tears, she's telling me that they are moving his dad to the ICU, come to the hospital right away. So we automatically go worst case scenario. And so I don't even know that I had to say anything. James just saw the look on my face, and I told him what had happened. And it wasn't even a conversation. It was, we have to go. It wasn't even a decision. We just immediately knew family comes first. This is not even a decision. We're packing it up and we're out of here. And then you guys were fantastic. I think we knocked on the camper, asked Blake if he could get all of our stuff that we had just set up, because we didn't even take the time to pack up, really. We just jumped in the truck and started heading back to the hospital as fast as we could. I mean, we were a few hours away.
And that was late in the evening, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you guys pack up, roll out, you're headed back to the hospital. Something happened because you turned around.
Yeah, so we were I guess we were about 2.5, 3 hours down the road, and my mom called back and said, "Hey, we just left the hospital. We were with your dad. They moved him to the ICU, but he's actually doing better now. They've got a plan. He wants you to go race, and we do too. The visiting realities are still what they were, meaning we couldn't go visit them anyways. So mom was like, she's like, I mean, I don't know how far you are, and I don't know if it's even, if you can even still do it, but if you want to turn around and go back and run, you should do that. And so Jennifer and I pulled over. We pulled into a Cracker Barrel parking lot and said, you know what, let's get some food and let's talk through this and make a decision here.
Yeah, this was a total emotional roller coaster, because
That's what I was about to
we were
say.
even having the conversation racing back. Oh man, maybe we made the wrong decision. We never should have come. And then to realize everything's okay, and it's so okay that they won't even let us come. They have got a plan. He just needs to rest. It wasn't worst case like we thought. It was just a little bit of whiplash, for sure, to say the least.
Yeah, so we had dinner and we talked about it, and we said, you know what, we're going to go back, and we even talked about the fact that, like, dad's fighting. He's going through something really, really difficult. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna fight, and I'm gonna push my body really, really hard, and I'm gonna do it in his honor. Dedicate it to him. I knew he'd be following along, and that, hoping that'd give him some inspiration, encourage him as he's going through his struggles there in the hospital. So I think it was about 10 o'clock, 10:30, something like that. We turned around. We were just south of Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And turned around and drove back. Got back up to just outside of Nashville there. I guess it was 12:30, something like that. Yeah, it was late. Little, after midnight, 1 a.m., somewhere around there. Tried to get some, go to sleep right away. Able to get a few hours of sleep, and then got up and headed out to the course to run.
I'll tell you what, brother, that's some, I was thinking like, gosh, James must have really wanted to run this race. But, when you kind of talk about it in a way of the way you just explained it, I knew my dad was fighting. By the way, what was your dad's name?
His name was James also, but he went by Buck Ward.
Okay. Yeah. You knew Buck was fighting, and you said, well, I'm going to do something where I can fight alongside of him, and I know he's going to be able to see this on social media land, and maybe that'll give him some inspiration. Maybe that he knows that, I'm not struggling on the level that he is, but at least I'm out here, right, doing this hard thing and pushing myself. That's really cool, man. I never realized that was part of your thought process of making that decision and making that commitment to turn around and come out and race.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It really was, and everything. I was telling Jennifer and some of our friends the other night. I mean, I am who I am because, in no small part, because of my father, right? And the way that his values and the way that he taught me, and in the way that he supported me and encouraged me when I wanted to do something that was hard or that didn't make great financial sense, but was something that I felt like I needed to do. And so I knew he, not just because he told me to go run, but I knew he would want me to go do that. And so that made the decision easier.
Man, yeah, that's pretty cool. It really is. You turn around, you come back, we start to race. You've already been through this, like you said, emotional roller coaster, and physically you're already behind on sleep. How did you feel that morning? I mean, were you energized because now you have this new purpose or new why? Or
yeah, I was. Honestly, I felt really good. Starting out, I was excited about it. There's that pre-race adrenaline and just excitement building kind of as you get closer to it. And I was excited about that. I felt strong. I felt good. I certainly could have been more rested, but I didn't, that was what it was. I didn't figure it was that big of a deal. And felt like I had a real good why behind why I was doing this at that point.
Which is extremely important.
He shot a video for his dad before the start that was kind of special and sent that off to his family beforehand. And the plan was to just keep updating them as the race progressed.
Yeah. All right. Now we start the race. So what's kind of the next big thing, either for you personally or for you guys as a husband, wife, or for your father? Yeah. I mean, what's the next part of the story for you?
So Jennifer was there,
because it's not just a regular race for you.
No,
this
it's
thing
not.
Is
So Jennifer was there crewing me, and the first, did the first lap, did the second lap, felt good, everything great. Come around for the third lap. So we're an hour in, right? Because it's 20 minutes per lap. Literally, I believe it was the third lap. I think it was 1 hour in. I come in, come down kind of down that last hill through that little pasture field area and into the starting corral. And I see Jennifer standing there. She was standing out right at the edge of the starting corral. And I know my bride, man. We've been married almost 20 years, and I know her well, and I could see from, 100 yards away, something's not right.
Yeah.
And come into the starting corral, and she grabs my hands and takes me straight to the seat, sets me down in that chair, and she gets face to face with me. She's like got her hands up on my ears and pulling me right into her, and she just says, "Hey, I just talked to your mom. Your dad took a turn. He's on a ventilator. He's not going to make it." And in that moment, it just felt like the road, the great theologian Mike Tyson has a quote, right? Everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the face. And I felt like leading up to that point, I had a plan. I had a why.
Yeah.
I felt good. And I couldn't be beat. And then I got punched right square in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember sitting there in that chair feeling like, not knowing what to do. And just feeling like I just want to sit here. And didn't know what the right thing to do was, didn't know how to respond, didn't, just the reality of it setting in. Heard that 30-second whistle blow. Because, the reality is, right, I come in, I'm at 17, 18 minutes. She tells me, if I'm going to keep running, I got about 2 minutes to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other realities were he was on a ventilator. We knew he didn't want to be kept alive artificially. He didn't want to be on the ventilator. My mom and my sister were calling me to ask if it's okay to take him off. They could have kept him on long enough for me to get off the course and drive down and say my goodbyes, but he was unconscious. And so, there were these decisions that had to be made. I heard that 30-second whistle blow, and it's almost like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah.
I just stood up.
Conditioned.
It's like conditioned. It's like, well, I stood up and walked out there, and they blew the whistle and started running. I honestly, I don't even know what I was thinking. I really don't. But I got, maybe a couple hundred yards into that fourth lap, and all of a sudden began to realize quickly, all right, I gotta make some decisions here. I can't, I gotta make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get into that in just a second, but
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask Jennifer before we talk through your thoughts on that lap. How was it for you? Obviously, in this, you're in this environment where there's all this energy and this positivity and all this, stuff happening, and here you are having to bear the burden of this news. I mean, can you talk me through how you managed that?
Well, it was a really interesting thing to look back on, even back at the Cracker Barrel when James was considering, after his family said turn around and go back. I didn't tell him this, but what I was thinking inside was, man, does he really want to put himself through this after a week like this? But I never voiced that because the other part of me, just being on this ultra running adventure and journey with him, and training with him and all of that, I get that drive inside, and I understood why he wanted to continue forward. And I really respected and admired his desire to do that, even though things were just stacking up against that, the outcome was likely not, from a race perspective, going to be real pleasant. I just understand that. It's something that I think we share, and he doesn't have to explain that to me. And then coupled with the fact that we had such a peace Friday night, and there was so much hope. I really felt like his dad, with what the doctors had told us Friday night, was going to pull through. And so the phone call from his mom for me was a complete shock. I thought she was calling to just check in on the race. I never, and maybe this sounds naive, but just with the information that I had at the time, I really did not expect that kind of call. And so the initial feeling was complete shock. I mean, I think I sat down in the crew area and just processing this, even asking, well, what should we do? We can he'll be back here in 5 minutes. We can get in the truck. And they said, and his mom said, honey, he's unconscious. He's not going to know you're here. And his sister immediately said, Dad would want James to keep racing. And I get emotional thinking about it, because I know that I have to tell him on that course with everything that's going on and so many people around. And plus there's our friends, good friends there, doing the documentary. So it's very public environment to share news with my best friend in the whole world that I know is going to shatter his heart. Mm-hmm. And so it felt overwhelming. I think I went over to Dwayne right away and said, Dwayne, I need you to take your documentary filmmaker hat off and I need you to put on your friend hat. What do I do here? Like, logistically, he's going to be here in about 5 minutes. I'm going to have 2 minutes to tell him all of this. And it just helped to process with Dwayne and his wife, Dawn, just tactically, how do I communicate this in 60 seconds? And so I thought through that, and I knew I wanted to be strong for him, give him the information that he needed. But I don't know that anything prepares. I don't think it's an overstatement to say those were some of the worst 2 minutes of my life. And we've traveled the world. We've seen some horrific things. I know you've seen a lot, but there's something about telling the person you love most in this world news that you know is going to just shatter their heart. And so, like you said, just taking his head in my hands. And I was actually trying to keep it between us, because I also didn't want to impact the other runners, because that's hard news. And I knew I had to tell James, but I was actually hoping, Chad, that you didn't know what was going on, because I didn't want it to impact what you were trying to accomplish on that day. And so I had that in the back of my mind too. Like, how do I do this in a way that's going to be minimally impacting to the people around us? And man, when he stood up to go face that starting line, I was just kind of in awe of his ability to do that. Because when I told him about his dad, I mean, the look of pain on his face, I don't think I'll ever forget. And that's not necessarily a horrible memory, because there's so much love.
Yeah.
But when he hit the starting line to go, when you guys were out of sight racing, my legs just gave out. I mean, there was a physical reaction to me. I kind of hit the ground in front of the chair. And Blake and Brooke and Dwayne, who was filming, everybody just kind of in that circle around me. And Blake prayed in that moment. And I'm not an emotional person, but I get emotional talking about it, because Blake, your prayer meant so much to me in that moment. And that community of people just coming around me in that moment gave me strength. Your prayer, the spirit inside of me, and the community there gave strength to be strong for him. And so after Blake prayed, I felt like I could stand up and do what needed to be done. And someone asked me quickly after that, are you okay with James keep running like this? And I just have such a conviction and passion around, I'll follow this man anywhere. And if he's in for this, I am 100% in, whatever it takes. And that was my mindset in that moment. I mean, there was a moment of falling apart, but thankfully your family and the people there were a real support for me in that moment. And I think a big reason why I was able to get up and actually tactically do what needed to be done.
Wow. So you got to see this, Blake. I mean, I didn't know any of this had happened literally till the race was over. James was it's amazing how, well, I didn't get to see you a lot, Jennifer, but I got to see James every lap, and just how he kept his composure on the course after that moment. And I want to hear about that fourth lap here in a minute, but I never knew his father was, and he had these decisions to make, and that he eventually passed away. I didn't have a clue, man, because he was just out there grinding, man. Now, he was quiet, but I just thought he was grinding. You know what I mean? I just thought he was focused. You got anything to say, Blake? Because
I mean, for me, that it was kind of like I knew y'all were dealing with a lot, and I didn't want to interject where like, and just add like a whole other piece to the puzzle, right? So, when James came in, I kind of told some of the other people, hey, just like let them do their thing, because, we don't all want to be around at that time. And you handled it awesome. And when he got up and left, I kind of just felt like maybe that was our spot, to step in and talk. And I mean, usually I don't know what to say, but I just really felt the Holy Spirit in that moment. And he just kind of told me, hey, she knows all these things. Just remind her these things, that he's in a better place, that we, this is a natural thing. And just all these things. I don't even remember exactly what I said, but it just kind of came out. And I don't know, it wasn't me. It was just God working through me. And, we were all honored just to be there, but it was definitely kind of, it was a much different and more special moment right there. I say special, I'm not like, it was a terrible thing that happened, but it's always special when the Holy Spirit is in your presence and you can feel him there. But
dang, I didn't get to experience that with you guys. I'm kind of jealous of that, man.
It was pretty special. I'll never forget it.
Well, wow. All right. Well, this is why we did a podcast about this. Let's so you go out, James. You like you said, the first little bit you didn't know what you were thinking, but soon it kind of dawned on you. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So I took off, just started running, and quickly realized, like, all right, I got to make some decisions here. I got to decide what to do. And so it came to me that if I was going to keep running, which I hadn't decided at that point whether I was or not, I just knew I was going to run that fourth lap at least, that I needed to have some time to be able to call my mom, talk through things with her, say goodbye to my dad. And I knew that I didn't want him on that ventilator. I just knew I didn't want him kept alive that way. And so I realized, or I made the decision that I'm going to run this lap really fast. And it was, I think it was about the time that first little creek crossing there is when I kind of came to that. And so I just took off and just ran. And I'm sure, man, like we were going up that hill and those boys at the front of the pack were thinking, what is this moron trying to do?
Yeah.
Does he not realize this isn't a 4-lap race? Like I was trying to come into the finish real hot or something. But I took off and I ran that last lap as fast and as hard as I could. And came in with, I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think I had like 10 and a half or 11 minutes or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
so you
were,
did go through it quick then.
Blake and I were sitting there and he said, is that James? And I'm thinking, we're not supposed to see him for another 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah. So I came in, Jennifer's came out to the starting corral right away. I said, hey, let's call mom. Got mom on the phone and just kind of walked off the side of the course a little bit and sat down and just had a conversation with mom, understood what the situation was. She, she put it on speaker. I told her that, I didn't want him to keep him on the ventilator. I thought we needed to let him go, which she agreed with. My mom and sister were both there at the hospital in the room with them, and they put me on the speakerphone and gave me the opportunity just to, and he was unconscious. What he could hear or not hear, I don't know, but I still didn't, I wanted to take that opportunity to make sure I said whatever I wanted to say. And had the opportunity there to just say my goodbyes, thank him for being such a great father and always loving me and investing in me and showing me the way. And so took the opportunity to do that. Told Mom and Ashley that, what do you want? I can be there in 3 hours. And I don't want you guys to have to deal with this on your own. I can walk away right now. We can be in the truck. We can be home in 3.5 hours. And I believe it was my sister that said, no, Dad would want you to win that race. And Mom said, yeah, we're fine. She said, we're just going to go home. We're not going to tell anybody. We're not going to deal with anything today. Just run, and we'll see you when you're done. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. But I think, the thing in hindsight, looking back, the thing I realize now is that my why changed drastically.
Yeah.
In that moment, right? Because before it was about encouraging my dad. It was about doing it for him and him being able to watch it unfold and be encouraged by that. Well, that wasn't going to be a reality anymore because I effectively just gave the go ahead to remove the ventilator and to let him go. And so I think it was, from a emotional standpoint, just a lot changed right then for me in terms of the race, and even in terms of really wondering, am I doing the right thing here? I got 2 kids at home with Jennifer's mom that they don't know their grandfather just passed away. I got my sweet wife who's carried this burden of having to tell me this, and I'm getting 2-minute increments with her every lap. Am I being a good husband in this moment? And then I got my mom and sister at home left to deal with whatever needs to be dealt with today. Am I being a good son and a good brother? And that tension was real. I mean, that tension was and I don't know. I mean, I still, 2 weeks out, did I make the right decision or not? I don't know. I don't know that there is a right or a wrong, but
I have an opinion.
I know you do, but I, at the end of the day, I decided, hey, if Dad would want me to run, I'm going to run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and please share.
Well, I could tell he was conflicted. I mean, you observed on the course that he was real quiet, but I could just see the pain on his face, the questions, am I doing the right thing when he would come in? Are the kids okay? It doesn't feel right that we haven't told the kids. What I couldn't communicate in those 2-minute increments is that I've been on the phone with his mom and sister. I've been talking with my mom. All of the unity and support for James was there with our families. And I was trying in those short amount of time to just alleviate that tension. Babe, everybody's good. I'm checking in with him. We're good. And to give him the confidence that I'm okay. I'm able to be strong for you. But I don't know that anything that I could have said would have resonated to alleviate that, because I get it. But for me, from my perspective, I just had so much respect and a bit of awe of what he was doing in those moments. And I don't think any of your family have any regret about that at all. Mm-hmm. Only pride in the best way.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. Because this is pretty early on.
Yeah.
I mean, so you guys were out there for a long time after you made this decision to carry on. And what kind of things were you processing or other than that conflict you were having of am I doing the right thing out here? I mean, how many more hours were you on the course?
9.
9 more hours. So 9 more hours.
Yeah.
How was that? I mean,
it was a roller coaster. I mean, there were I'm sure, the vast majority of the people out there running had no idea what was going on. And I'm sure they thought I was just a straight out nut job, man. Because I'd be running at one moment and I'd be kind of giggling to myself, thinking about memories of me and Dad and things we did and experiences and stories, and really celebrating that, man, he is pain-free right now. He is experiencing something right now that I can only imagine. And just, I'm almost giddy for him, and thinking about the life that we had together. And then other moments I'd be nearly bawling. I mean, I'd be coming down one of those hills and just, tears strolling down my face, ugly crying almost. And it just felt kind of like that kind of roller coaster, at least for the first probably 2 or 3 hours after we got the news.
Yeah.
And I guess it was 2 laps. I guess it was like the 6th lap that, because I told Jennifer, I said, listen, when he's gone, because they still, when I wrapped up with Mom after that fast lap, he still had the ventilator on.
Yeah.
And technically he was still alive. And so I told Jennifer, I said, I want to know when he's gone. Yeah. And so I think it was the 2 laps later is when she told me that. And so that's when, I kind of had a bit of that, okay, this is, he's in a better place. He's not suffering. I can celebrate. Mm-hmm. But it was just a range of emotions back and forth. And then, I think probably at some point, I just remember having the thought, all right, I feel good physically. And I think it was like around the 20, 24 mile mark, somewhere like that. I just remember thinking, I feel good physically. I'm in this thing. I need to focus. Like I need to start thinking about the race. Mm-hmm. And really trying to do that. And I just remember that constant battle of like, but the kids are at home. Yeah. But have I made the right decision? I'm not sure Jennifer's doing okay. What about Mom? No. Focus on the race. It's like, and it was just that tension back and forth kind of, lap. It was
impossible. It would have been absolutely impossible. And I mean, what are the effects for you? What were the effects of this significant now extra emotional and mental burden on you physically? How did that affect you?
Well, it's interesting because I remember coming in, I don't remember how far it was, but it was probably like, I don't know, 30 miles, 27 miles, somewhere in there. And I remember coming in and sitting down and Jennifer walking over, and I'm looking at her, and I just smiled on my face. I said, Jennifer, I can do this all day long. I feel great. It's like surprised at how good I felt. And then literally it was like 2 laps later, I just started coming unglued, man. Yeah. The wheels were falling off. I came in like lap, I don't remember what it was, call it 30. And, or probably wasn't, I don't know what it was, but I came in at 1 lap and I was like, I just whispered over to Jennifer. I was like, hey, I almost passed out, which I've never done while running at all. I was like, I got really lightheaded at the top of that second hill. And I almost passed out. And so, we drank some extra Tailwind, guzzled a bunch of water. She got me some salt tabs or something, thinking it was, I'm thinking it's a nutrition issue. Like I haven't eaten enough or I'm dehydrated or something. And so I'm just, guzzling everything I can, trying to get down some food. And then the next lap I go out and I was about halfway up that first hill, and I just felt like stomach start turning, start cramping, getting lightheaded, and just my pace just slowed a lot, and was really struggling, and got up the hill, down the next, and was coming up that second hill, and I could hear Jennifer's voice at the top of the hill calling on me. And in the back of my mind at that point, I thought I'm going to time out. I'm not going to make this lap. And I was pushing hard as I could. and I'm thinking, this sucks. This is not the way I want this race to go. And I hear Jennifer calling for me, and I get up to the top, and she looks at her watch, and she looks at me, and she's like, "You can make it, but you got to move." And so I just let out, son, going down that hill, and I was like, my legs were all. I mean, it was ugly.
It was not pretty.
But I gave it everything I had, and I think I had like 3 seconds to spare or something. It was no time.
Wow.
Somebody threw me a water bottle that had something in it.
Yeah,
and
it
I
was Chili's dad. Before I ran out on the course, because I was getting a little concerned, I told him, if I don't make it back when James comes, give him this bottle and this food. And he literally had just enough time to throw it to you before you had to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I, somehow I made the cut on that one and just kept, moving right on through. And, but man, I don't even know how far I got into that, what ended up being my last lap. And I just came unglued. I don't remember a lot of that last lap. I know Jennifer was out there with me. Tim Douglas was out there with me. And man, they were just cheering me on, encouraging me. And I just remember, dry heaving, stumbling all around. I mean, I just think I don't know exactly what happened or the cause of it, but I just had my body was just shutting down.
Yeah. I think I think that mental and emotional stress, like, it's manageable for quite some time, but when it finally catches up to you, and I don't think it catches up to you till you think you start to come out of it, which is what happened, exactly, I think, for you. You're like, you said you had that distinct, well, all right, I'm in this, right? And so you think you're like, all right, I'm starting to come out of this. I've had time to process at least a portion of this tragedy and losing my father, and reflect on his memory and mourn him somewhat. And then you think you're okay, now I can, and then it catches up to you. I mean, that's been my experience with it anyways. And I know you were saying too, you were looking at the analytics from your GPS watch and how it even affected your heart rate and things like that. Can you share that?
Yeah. So I do, especially training for this race for Mid-State, I was really conscious of doing some heart rate zone training and just knowing that it was going to be a long effort and wanting to keep my heart rate down at a really manageable level, so that I could perform for a really long time. And so that's the way I'd been training. And I went back, and because right after the race, people would ask me, what happened? And I thought, well, it was my nutrition. I got behind in nutrition and I couldn't make up for it. And that's just what I thought. It was literally, I think, on our way home, when I downloaded, from my watch to my phone, kind of the analytics of the run, and I'm looking at it, and it was like 83% of the run was in like high zone 3, zone 4 in terms of my heart rate, which I never, and I wasn't running fast. I mean, I ran that one lap fast, but I wasn't running the rest of them fast. I was, 17, 18 minute pace. My heart never is up at that level. For that sustained amount of time. And so in hindsight, right, I think just that emotional toll, that adrenaline burst of getting that news and trying to do, I just don't think I ever came down off of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize it. I didn't feel like my heart was pumping or racing the whole time, but it was. And so I just think, whether a body can perform, for how long at that elevated heart rate, I don't know. I know mine can't. Yeah. Because I quickly.
That's when those stomach issues start happening. And exactly. Yep. And, well, that's a testament of how, obviously, how connected the things and how the things that are going on in your brain affect you physiologically. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you said, your pace didn't change. Yep. You were physically able to keep your heart rate down, moving at that pace, but just what was going on in your head was affecting you physiologically and taking you into that high heart rate zone. It's crazy how powerful that is. And I want to go back to Jennifer too. And, you kind of left off, Jennifer, after you guys prayed together there, and you said you found the strength somehow to get back up on your feet and say, okay, if James is in this, I'm in with him 100%. Kind of what was the rest of the time like for you? Was it ups and downs? Was it, were you steady? How was the experience for you?
For the most part, I think I was pretty steady. There was a low point when I had to tell him that his dad was with Jesus. That was real emotional to actually tell him that. But for the most part, it felt steady. The internal conversation with myself was, wow, this is pretty amazing. I cannot believe he's even still running. And I cannot believe how strong he looks. I did notice when I would check his heart rate, just when he would come in, it was higher than normal, but it didn't make any connections I just kept thinking, okay, at some point, this is all going to catch up. I mean, it caught up with me physically immediately when my legs just gave out. Yeah. Wondering at some point, but never wanting to let on to him, because as far as I was concerned, he was going to go. I knew he was going to go until he physically could not go anymore. And really my experience was just incredible because of the people there. I've already mentioned Blake. He'd be sitting there, offer me some food, checking in. Your wife, Brooke, is the only reason that I ate that entire day, because she came under the tent and she said, have you eaten? No, I don't feel like eating. I didn't feel like eating a thing. And she literally brought me a plate of food, set it down. And that's the only reason that I ate during that whole time. And so the care that your family in particular, that was really, really special to me. And I think, again, just gave me strength to be strong for him.
Yeah.
And it was really special as well with the proving ground guys, because I have never crewed before. I got a lot to learn. I was taking notes on your setup there. I mean, even the water jugs and the way you do the tailwind, I was filling up these little Nalgene's and doing 10 times the work. I thought, wow, a Sharpie and a water jug. I have got to up my game here. But I didn't know what I was doing. And so I had said, I'll crew James, and Billy Nolan was going to be there from the proving ground too. Yeah, I can crew you too, having no idea.
Yeah.
What that meant.
And so that is a hard race to crew for.
Yeah, I had totally underestimated how fast 2 minutes would go by.
Yeah.
But when I had to give all the attention to James and giving him all this information in 2 or 3 minute increments, poor Billy all of a sudden has no crew. So I asked one of the proving ground guys, just spur of the moment, could you please take care of Billy, because I can't do both. No questions asked. I just showed him all the stuff to give Billy, and he stepped up right away. I think it was Blake and Chris. And then, is it JR? Mm-hmm. He noticed a little problem in my setup and brought me some ice. And it was just amazing how that community and the guys that knew you from Proving Ground that I'd never met in my life just helped. And to me, a huge takeaway is just to not underestimate what might seem like a small gesture, how impactful, because I could spend all day talking about the small gestures that people showed me that day, and all of that made it possible to even keep going as long as we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the most amazing parts about that race, and I think it's what draws me back to it. Yeah. Now for 2 years, is the people 100%. It's hands down the most unique environment in ultra running that I've ever experienced. I've been to many other last man standing races. It's just not like the Mid-State Mile. It's very segregated, and that place somehow just I don't know, something weird happens. But
if I could, I do want to mention one more person too. You mentioned it, but that last lap, I could tell as you guys left, or as James left the start, he was really struggling. So I ran out there with him for the last lap. And he was in such bad shape. I was afraid on that hill he was going to fall over backwards and crack his head open or something. And was it Tim that I saw him further down the hill, and I just motioned for him without James being able to hear me, just, can you get his back if he falls backwards? Just catch his head, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he's literally running behind James with his hands out to catch him if he falls. I'm running beside James. All this is strangely on film too. No idea if Dwayne will decide to use any of
I
this.
hope not.
But
I don't want to see that.
James looked horrible, but also as a wife, I might have looked like a real jackwagon because I'm just yelling at him to keep going. You got more. You can do more.
I remember a couple things about that last lap. One of them was I was coming just top that second hill, getting ready to come down that more gentle downhill. And I was thinking to myself, I was already so far out. I was probably like 28 minutes or something already at that point. But I was thinking I can make up some time going down this hill. And so I start trying to run faster, and I fall and I drop my poles. And I get back up and I start running again. And Jennifer's like, James, you got to pick up those poles.
Well, at that
point,
go
turn
back and
around,
get 'em?
go back up the hill a little bit, pick up my poles, and come back down because she wasn't
going to break the rules.
She wasn't going to break those rules.
Yeah.
No, at that point, I thought he might make it in 3 seconds to spare again, and I'm not disqualifying him by picking up those poles. I'm not helping.
Well, I'll tell you what, it must have been an epic loop because I don't think Dwayne ran any loops with me. And if Dwayne got out on them hills to film that, it must have been epic.
No, it was, yeah.
You know he's going to use that footage.
I think Ed was with us most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he did. At one point, Ed said, James, I'm not doing this hill for anybody else because I don't think he had got out of there. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But Tim was amazing. I mean, it was a pretty special moment. And then the other thing that just speaks to James's character, and I know I'm not biased, but this is pretty special. He was not making a bit of sense. He was dry heaving, stumbling, falling all over the place, but still moving forward. And then we get up to the top of the hill, and there's another guy on all fours, not moving forward at all. And James just starts encouraging him and saying, man, you got more. You can keep going. And he gets the other guy up.
Was it like this? Oh, come on, man. You got it.
It was like we were both. I was
Back and
I was
forth.
dry heaving on one side of the trail. He was dry
Do
heaving
you
on the
remember
other.
who that was?
Yeah, it was old Aaron Patrick.
Oh,
We
yeah.
both.
Okay.
I think we both went out on that loop.
Okay.
Yeah, he
I
was.
just thought it was so cool that as bad as shape.
I think
I've
it
never
was him.
seen you
I
in
could
that
have
bad
been
of shape.
wrong because I wasn't all there, but I think it was him.
You
Yeah.
were not all there. I've never seen you like that. But that he still had that in him to encourage someone else to go
Yeah.
further. I love that about James.
Well, it sounds like he got it from Buck because of the story he just told about him in the hospital. As bad a shape he was, he
Yeah.
told the
Yep.
nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a unique attribute for a person. And, of course, we have the honor of training very high-performing individuals out in the wilderness environment every month with the basic course. But even a high-performing human being that's used to being successful, that has some significant life experience, when you put them in a situation where they are feeling not even really close to what James was feeling, but feeling definitely uncomfortable, whether it's because of physical stress or stress that the elements are putting on them, I would say 95% of people, what they'll do is turn inward. And it's a natural response to the discomfort because what you're doing at that point as a human is you're tapping into that kind of primal instinct and you're trying to preserve yourself. So they turn inward. They won't offer any help to anyone around them. They kind of just want to sit there with their arms drawn in and just be still and quiet. And that's what happens. So when and James, I would not expect you to do that. Obviously, it doesn't surprise me that you did what you did. I just want to point it out that it's something that we should all strive to do. All you guys listening to this, when you find yourself in those moments of discomfort, extreme discomfort, or whatever it may be, when you find yourself in that position, look at that as an opportunity to get a little mentally tougher and try to seize that moment and look outward and do what James did and try to pour into someone else that may be as uncomfortable as you, because if they're around you in that situation, they probably are. They're doing the same thing you're doing, and try to pour into them and encourage them and help them. And it actually helps you in turn. Now, it's not going to you're not going to grow wings and be able to fly after that, but it's going to take your mind off of your discomfort and your misery. And it's also just a really good thing to strive to do when you find yourself in those moments. I know I do that all the time, man. Mm-hmm. So great lesson, great takeaway there. I appreciate you bringing that up, Jennifer. When the race was over for you, I mean, how did you feel? I mean, once you knew it was over,
yeah,
were you satisfied?
No, I wasn't. I'm still not. To be honest, I was fairly, I don't know, angry, maybe comes to mind, or certainly disappointed. And I think I was thinking about this, and spent a lot of time talking about it with Jennifer and with a couple other friends. And, I think mentally, I switched from I'm running this race to encourage my dad to I'm running this race to honor my dad.
Yeah.
And then to not perform like I know I'm capable of performing, not to perform at a level that I think is worthy of the honor that he deserves. Mm-hmm. Is really disappointing. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I look back on, and I get all the reasons why, and I mean it's I've got some grace for myself, but I'm still disappointed.
Yeah, I
still feel like there's unfinished business out there, and that's been, I mean, the hardest thing post race has been walking through this with our children.
Yeah,
right, having to come home and tell my sweet 10-year-old daughter, who thought Hapa, which is what she called my dad, that just thought Hapa hung the moon, and to have to tell her that Hapa's not here anymore. And then my 7-year-old boy, tell him that, and then walk through kind of their grief and how they deal with this. That's certainly been the hardest thing. I would say somewhere up on that list of hard things has been dealing with just the disappointment of not performing to the level that I know I'm capable of. I can not perform to that level if it's just me I'm letting down. Okay, I can get over that.
Yeah,
I'm a big boy. But feeling like I let my mom down, my sister down, didn't honor my dad with my performance like I could have. Those are the things that I'm disappointed in, and just feel like I got some work to do there. Yeah. I got some redemption I need to go claim as it pertains to that.
Well, I'm glad you have some grace with yourself on that, obviously, because there were some physiological things and emotional things that were completely out of your control that affected you, whether you wanted them to affect you or not. That would have affected me the exact same way. Really, none of us are immune from it unless we are just cold-hearted and evil people, which thank God we're not. Yeah. And we actually have the ability to care and love and feel those things. But again, I think that I don't know that disappointment is the right word. I think for me, as I analyze that, it's more like you're not content, right? I don't know. I think that to not be content with it is it can be a good thing, right? Because that now can breed hunger and drive you into whatever your next mission is, that is going to be in honor of your father's life, which I think you should do another mission.
Yeah.
Well, continuously throughout your life to keep his memory alive. Yeah. You know what I mean? So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, for sure. And what's your plan?
Well, I've got I signed up. Well, so a couple things. One is take care of my mom.
Yeah.
Now she does it. My mom is a strong, and I got to meet your mom at the race. She was incredible, by the way, as well. She encouraged Jennifer every time I'd come in. Man, I'm so proud of you. She had met me a couple hours earlier, I think, but she was just so sweet. And I know she's a strong woman. My mom's a strong woman.
Good.
But she's used to, for the last 45 years, having my dad at her
45
right
years
hand.
is a long time,
Yep.
son.
And so there's a gap there. There's a void there for her. I know I'm not going to be able to fill it, but I'm going to be there for her. And so that's top priority. Walking through this with Jennifer and the kids, and trying to grieve well and honor him well through this process and his legacy is really important to me. But I do have some future missions for that I want to do in honor of him. The reality is, anything I do like that, I do because of him, because I am who I am, because he got out of the military and went on just some really awesome adventures. At one point he took his 70-year-old dad hitchhiking across the United States. They literally went from Harrodsburg, Kentucky, just outside of Lexington, all the way up to the northern part of Washington State to pick apples, and they hitchhiked the whole way and back.
Wow.
And that's the type of stuff he would do. His blood flows through my veins, and so I'm going to continue to do those things. Specifically, though, I'm on the wait list. I think I'll get in for a 100-miler in November. I want to do that, and then want to go back to Mid-State next year and finish what I started there.
Yeah. What 100-miler are you looking at?
The Pinhoti.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you might get to see some of the Pinhoti with me here in a few months.
I'm hoping so.
So I see you have you've written an after action report. Is this what this is?
Yeah.
Do you do this with all your races? I mean, what is it, something special that you did for this particular experience? Or?
Yeah. It's more for this specific experience. I do take notes. Jennifer and I do talk through stuff after we do anything, right? We kind of debrief it together and just, what do we learn? What do we take away? All that kind of stuff. So, on this one, I did a little more extensively, just because I really, there's some things that some lessons that I really want to make sure I remember. There's some of the memories of, that day and that experience. There's some I'd love to forget, but then there's others that I don't want to forget.
Yeah.
I want to remember how it felt in those moments too. So yeah, we spent a little time together.
Well, is there anything that we missed that you want to share out of that, James?
Jennifer, anything you have, and then I'll look at it here.
Well, I guess the only thing I would add is I think we're learning a lot about grief. And I know a lot of people have experienced a lot of different things this past year. Maybe it's not losing a loved one, but there's loss of some sort for all of us. And one of our close pastor friends, he's a pastor up in Nashville, was listening to a sermon last year sometime, and something he said, that if you don't deal with grief or feel a loss, allow yourself to feel a loss, then it will come up another time eventually, in a bad way, in an unhealthy way. That may be a week from now, a month from now, years from now. And I think that's a lesson I'm just learning, because as I mentioned, we've been in a lot of really difficult parts of the world, see some difficult things, and I'm really good, and I think James is too, at ignore and override and just continue going forward.
Yeah.
And there's a cost to that. I'm just now learning. I wish I had learned it in my 20s, but it's something I feel like I'm just now learning that takes time. Mm-hmm. And I think about it in terms of running. You can't rush training for an ultra. it takes patience. And I feel like that's what I'm learning with grief too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm impatient with that. I want it to be over faster than it is. And taking what I've learned with running over the past year and kind of getting into endurance running a little bit and applying that to life, to me makes a lot of sense. And it's a good analogy for me to just feel what loss is like.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we're both learning and want to pass on to our kids so it doesn't come up later in a bad way.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a certain kind of, people almost see if you're feeling your feelings as like a weakness, but in reality, if you're not feeling those things, in my mind, what you're doing is hardening your heart. If you're not allowing yourself to feel it, then you're building that heart of stone and not the heart of flesh that God gives you. Because if you, I'll pray a lot of times, Lord, help me to see this stuff through your eyes and to be compassionate for the things you're compassionate for. Because if you see on the news so many times that somebody dies, eventually you're hardened your heart and it just doesn't bother you. Like, this dude got murdered, and the same thing happened yesterday. But if that doesn't break your heart every time that people are out there killing people, just because you see it all the time, then that's going to turn and harden your heart. And if you don't allow yourself to feel the grief and those feelings, then that's all that you're doing is hardening your heart. Now, there is a time, and James's race was a perfect example. There's a time to put that aside and say, there is something that has to be done, and it is here right now, and I have to get it done. Yeah. I'm not going to feel grief right now because I have a mission at hand. And that's what he did. But when that's over with, then it's time to take a wrap off and feel what you're going through, at least that's how I see it.
Oh, you're exactly right. I've about spent my whole life just hardening my heart. It affects me, when people pass away around me, I don't much grieve it. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So take Jennifer's advice. I think that's a very wise counsel, because it's a process. Just like everything else is a process. Just like Jennifer said, training for an ultra, whatever you're doing, starting a business, there's going to be a process to it. And that's the reason a lot of people fail, is because they become impatient with the process and generally take the easier route, because the easier route is not to grieve and just say, all right, let's carry on. That's the easier route. So wise counsel.
There's a quote that I came across literally just yesterday evening. And I don't even know who said it, but I'll just read it because it so applies to this, and it's something that I've read multiple times today. Because to your point, Blake, a lot of times I feel like, I equate the effects of grief as weakness. Mm-hmm. That's what he said. It says, grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness nor a lack of faith. It is the price of love.
Mm.
And that's how I want to move through this and future loss, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the reality is none of us nor anyone we love leaves this life alive. We all our days are numbered.
Yeah.
And so grief is a reality that we will all have to deal with. And there's healthy ways to deal with it and unhealthy. There's not easy and hard. It's all hard. But there's healthy and unhealthy, and I love just, it's not a place to stay, but it's a passage, and it's the price of love. It's the price of caring.
Yeah, and thinking of that, dude, love is worth that cost.
That's right.
Love is 100% worth the cost of grief.
Yeah,
even with your dogs. Yep. I mean that's a little mini example of it. You say, here, I'm going to get this dog. I'm going to fall in love with this dog. It's going to bring me so much joy and happiness, but it's going to die before me, more than likely, and now I'm going to have to deal with that. So is the joy, the love, and the happiness that the dog brings into your life worth the cost of the grief? And yes, it is every time.
Yep.
Yep. That's a wonderful quote, man. I really like that.
Two quick things, Chad, you asked about in terms of lessons or learning. One is, man, if you don't have people in your life that can come around you the way that Blake and Brooke and your mom and Dwayne and Dawn and the folks that were, I mean, the alumni from both 1 troop and 2 troop from Proving Ground that were at the race, the way that they came around Jennifer and I, if you don't have those people in your life, I feel for you, man. I don't know how you're going to make it through the challenges that life is going to dish your way. Because the value of that community is immeasurable. And it was just, I think one of the things I realized after the race was, I took off running thinking about me and what I needed to do. I was unaware, and this, probably reveals some of my own selfishness, but I was unaware or not thinking about what my sweet wife had just been through and what she had to tell me. And then I stand up and literally run away. Right? It's like, well, dude, that was probably pretty lame.
No, it wasn't. I was proud of you.
But she had people around her that stepped in and loved her and cared for her in that moment. And then when I came in, I knew that. And that was part of what gave me the freedom to say, okay, I can keep going. And so the value of that community is just immeasurable.
Yeah.
Well, and what's special about both y'all is that you allowed people to do that, because a lot of people want to, like you had committed to taking care of Billy. A lot of people would say, I made this commitment. I'm going to take care of him, and I'm going to take care of him and James both. And I'm not going to do as good a job, but I'm just going to do it. And you could have said, look, it's my job to take care of my wife. I know I can't do it while I'm out here running. I'm not going to allow these people to do it. And so if you're that way, then you rob the other people of the blessing. It's a blessing for me to be able to pray for you and to take care of you. I know James could have done it better, and it would have, I'm not discounting anything I'm saying. He's your husband, right? I mean, he knows you better. He could have done an excellent job, but it was a blessing for me to be able to contribute there, just like it was a blessing for JR and the other Proving Ground people to take care of Billy. And so if you are so bent on doing it all yourself and saying, hey, this is my job, I'm going to do it here, not only are you overdoing yourself, but you're also not allowing other people the blessing of taking care of that. So it's awesome that both of you have that. I mean, you've both shared stories where you did that, out specifically on the Mid-State Mile.
Well, and I have to say, too, to piggyback off of what James just talked about, the value of having, whatever you want to call it, an inner circle or a team or people that will come around you and pour into you when you need it. That's not free either. Right? And a lot of people may listen to this and say, oh, man, I wish I had that, but I just don't know how to get it.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can have that. You can access that, but it's going to cost you stuff. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you sometimes emotional and social discomfort. All right, there's a cost to this. Again, the value that you will receive is greater than the cost. This is the most beautiful thing about what we do at 3 of 7 Project and the body of 3 of 7 Project. If any of you guys out there think that we do the basic course of the Proving Grounds because we think we're going to get rich off, look, we make enough money off of those 2 experiences to pay 1.5 people's salary per year. All right? No, it ain't about the money. It is literally about providing an experience that people who want to make that investment, who want that circle of people that they can reach out to. It's providing a place, an experience where they can form that, right? Where else you going to do that? There ain't many other places. Yeah. And that's the reason why we do what we do. And that's the most beautiful fruit that's born out of those things. It's not the individual things that people take away from the experiences. It's not. It's the team, man. It's seeing these basic course teams that are still talking to each other well over a year after.
Not only
you know?
talking, I mean, they're
going out and doing missions
yeah.
together, and yeah, exactly, man. So I appreciate you pointing that out and the value of that, man.
It was
It is
awesome.
amazing. Praise God.
And then the second thing was, I've really seen this, especially as I reflect back on. We talk a lot at the Proving Ground. I know you guys do out on the basic course about this idea of maintaining the standard, right? And identifying what is the standard that you're going to live your life by. What are the values? What is the ethos or the code by which you are going to operate? And as I look back on that day specifically, there's some realities of the things that I did that weren't decided or thought of or processed through in that moment. They were a result of the standard in which I've chosen to live my life by. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's that time of, when chaos ensues, you're going to resort back to your training. You're going to resort back to what you know and how you know how to operate.
Yeah, it's muscle memory.
It's muscle
works
memory
for your brain too,
right? When that whistle blew, I knew I needed to run. I knew that if I was going to quit, that would have been the time and place to have done it, and that if I don't get out of this chair, I will have quit. Now, I may have decided a lap later that was the right thing to do, but I wasn't going to do it by default.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's part of, that's a standard. That's a value that I've lived by. Is I'm not going to quit.
Yeah.
And there are a number of those things, right? Putting family first. There's a number of those things that when the chaos ensued, when I was punched in the face, when, whatever analogy you want to use, I can see now that I resorted back to the level of my training or the values that I hold closely.
Yeah.
And I think, we teach that over and over and over again. And it's not a joke. It's not something to just put on the wall and look at and, make you feel good so you get a couple extra push-ups out of your workout in the morning. It's critical. Mm-hmm. It is critical. You will find yourself in places in life where you're up against it and you got to make a decision. There's not a right. There's not a wrong. There's only what you know to do.
Yep.
And the values that you live your life by have got to inform those decisions in that moment. And that, to me, this was a great example of that for me is, I just, in so many ways, and I'm not even convinced I made all the right decisions, but I did what I had programmed myself to do.
That's right. Yep. Yep. And luckily, this being a race and not some situation where your life or death was on the line, it was in a controlled environment. Although the stressor was outside of your control, it was a controlled environment to where no matter what decision you made, you guys were safe.
That's right. And
so to see that unfold in that controlled environment, this is why we train. This is why we do things. I don't want to say like this, but this is why we ultra run. This is to build that muscle memory, right? And to allow our brains to go through these motions of upholding these standards that we have set for ourselves over and over and over again. That way, when you will find yourself at some point in life in a situation where this plays out and there's something on the line that's way more valuable than your performance at a race, but it works the same either way as long as you've trained. So, like Jennifer said earlier in the conversation, there's a lot that we can take away from these silly races that we do and take it and apply it back to our real life. I've probably experienced just as much growth and learning through ultra running as I did through my time in the SEAL teams. To be totally honest with you, it's made me stronger. I'm stronger now than I've ever been. Yeah. And it's because of ultra running. I got what I could get out of the SEAL teams. I'm not there anymore. And I've continued to grow stronger and progress now, and it's essentially because of that ultra running environment. So, Blake, you got anything?
No, I just appreciate y'all, taking the time out to come out here and share this. It takes a lot of courage, and it's still fresh. it's just a couple weeks ago. But I think what was shared here will help a lot of people. So I love both y'all and appreciate y'all sharing on here.
Yeah, and it was a wonderful, really wonderful conversation. Just a powerful, powerful story, testimony, whatever you want to call it. Likewise, I'm also thankful that you guys took the time out of your day to come do this. I hope it goes out and impacts millions of people. Yeah. I mean, it's important that we sit down and have these conversations. There's value in it, because now we can push this out and it's there forever for anybody to hear, listen to, take away from. And it means a lot to us, man. James, you're such a huge part of the Body of 307 Project. And Jennifer, you too. You've been out to the Proving Grounds. You've been a part of those events and those experiences. And for you don't charge us anything. You just decide to come out there and pour into the students and be a part of it, which is really, really amazing, and we're so thankful for you. So,
well, thank you guys very much for having us. It's been an honor to be here. Your family is special to us, and they were before the race, but I feel like just your family and the experience knit to what happened with our family just makes that bond even stronger. So we're thankful for you guys.
For sure. And grateful. Thanks for letting us come and share the story. And it means a lot. And I would be remiss if I just didn't, kind of as a final parting thought here, just remind everyone that, at the end of the day, there's this verse here, Romans chapter 8. It says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For all the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God." And there is plenty of suffering in this world, and but it doesn't compare to what is in store for those of us that call Jesus our Savior, and that's why there is hope in the midst of tragedy. That's why I can lose my father and I can still celebrate, is because I have this confidence that he is now experiencing something that is far beyond anything we could dream of experiencing here because of his relationship with Jesus.
100%, brother. I love that, man. And I just want to say too, if you guys want to spend some time with James, to learn from James, to get to hear James speak and teach and get to really, intimately learn from him, join us at the Proving Grounds in January 2022 for 3 Troop. Lord willing, James will be there. He's a huge part of that experience, tremendous, huge part of that. And I know we talked about, too, James, adding you to the list of our speakers bureau. So if you guys are out there and you have a church, you have a business, you have something, and you want to hire James to come speak, he's an extremely good speaker, very articulate. Just reach out to us at 307 Events is where we book all of our speaking through. So hit us up, and we'll put you in touch with James, and you guys can get that booked up. We'll help with that process. So, all right, guys, that was an awesome conversation. Thank you guys so much. This is the 307 podcast. Enough said.